the Quad Cities has an unbelievable amount of breweries. So if you're
We're off to a good start.
Welcome to Happy Hour, the show where we explore all things Quad Cities. I'm your host, Mark Zyla. On this episode, we sit down and talk with Emmy Award-winning journalist, best-selling author, and content creator Charlie Berens as he makes his way to the area to perform at the Adler Theatre in Davenport and at the Five Flags Center in Dubuque. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on with us today, Charlie. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I understand you're on the road and you're in Dubuque right now.
Oh yeah, in Dubuque. Yep. Beautiful this time of year, but I did just stop in the Quick Trip, or I suppose it's Quick Star here.
Ooh.
And there's a boil warning in effect, and
so avoid the bubbler.
Yeah, I had to avoid the bubbler here. They got that boil warning going on, so that'll happen, I suppose.
For sure. Well, let's go about this a little bit in the James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio kind of premise here. I want to talk to Charlie, the person. So, looking at your background, I see that you have a journalism degree from Wisconsin. So that leads me to believe that in your early iterations, you were really interested in becoming a journalist in like the traditional sense. But now you're definitely way outside of that paradigm. So talk to me a little bit about when young Charlie Berens was thinking about studying journalism, and what kind of got you into that space. Charlie, you're muted.
Jeez Louise. I don't know how that happened, but
no worries.
Yeah, well, in high school, my older brother, Andy, he was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. And so I kind of started writing for him. He taught me a lot of the basics, and then I actually ended up becoming the editor-in-chief after he left, which was kind of cool. But that was sort of the early on, inclination, I suppose. I'd always been a writer. I've always loved writing, and whether it be entertainment or a sort of journalism, I've always sort of gravitated toward that. And then in college, I started working for MTV. They had this choose or lose campaign, and they were looking for a rep in each state to represent their state. So I kind of represented Wisconsin. I got that job. I honestly don't think a lot of people applied, but that's probably how I got it.
And showing up is half the battle, right?
Showing up is half the battle, exactly. And so that kind of got me started really seeing the power of journalism in a lot of ways. In fact, during that job, I was working at the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis. It was in the Midwest, so they had the Midwest sort of correspondents go there. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting arrested with the protesters. And we got a Harley firing up right next to me. That's nice. They're from Milwaukee.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect soundscape.
Milwaukee representing. But yeah, I got arrested there, and that was really interesting. And I think that may have really pushed me farther down the journalism path, because it was known that I was a journalist. I was with another journalist from the Boston Globe. Mm-hmm. And we both got arrested. We both had credentials. All the journalists got arrested. Same with the protesters. And that really isn't supposed to happen.
Right.
And then it took months. It could have been weeks or months, but definitely over a month to get the footage back. Mm-hmm. And to get that kind of stuff back. And that seemed to be excessive and unnecessary from the standpoint of, there was footage on that, on my camera that was relevant at the time that it was taken. And so to set a month between it made it less relevant. And I I think intentionally so. I don't know
Hmm.
intentionally so, but I suspect.
Right.
But anyway, it sort of put me on this path of seeing, like, how, whoever it is, whether it be government, whether it be business, people in power, they have a lot of control over the average person's life.
Hmm.
And that was something I was always very interested in. So that kind of set me farther down the journalism path.
Hmm.
And yeah, but at the same time, journalism was changing, and sort of it almost seemed to be important stories were being reported on,
Right.
but people weren't necessarily listening. I felt like there were very important things going on with the climate and politics and the wars that we were in. That
Hmm.
kind of fell on deaf ears, and people were sort of disconnected, disassociated with it. But then I looked at Jon Stewart and sort of the way he presented the news, though through a bias. More importantly than his bias, I don't think his bias was really getting the news across. I think it was his jokes and it was his humor.
Right. Right.
That because once you can get people to laugh, you can get them to listen. So I was kind of inspired by that.
Hmm.
And that kind of got me on this sort of hybrid of news and journalism, or I'm sorry, journalism and comedy, where you kind of take. I worked for a couple organizations where we kind of turned news into comedic news,
Hmm.
and or presented stories comedically, and that kind of was the initial beginning of kind of getting me into comedy.
That's awesome. So in your comedy background, doing some research for this, I saw that you did comedy in Los Angeles for a while at the Comedy Store. What kind of brought about that that trip in
Yeah.
your life?
So yeah, I was started doing more traditional journalism because those were the jobs I was getting, and then
Right.
from there I went to red carpet reporting, which I don't think was real journalism. It was mostly glorified PR, and I was
Hmm.
frustrated with it, so I started doing stand up at night.
Yep.
And I developed this character where I took all the things, from my time in local news. I worked in Dallas,
Hmm.
doing local news. That there, I was doing some other news organizations, and everywhere I went, I kind of had people tell me, you got to get rid of the accent, or you say this wrong or that wrong. And so I
Right.
took all
Right.
those things people said I was doing wrong, and I doubled down on them, really,
Hmm.
to
Right.
create this stand-up character, which a lot of people know as the Manitowoc Minute character.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I was not a great comedian, but that bit always did well. And so
Right.
yeah, I was doing stuff at the Comedy Store, but it was a lot of bringer shows. It was a lot of, I got a couple book spots, but it was mostly because I was working the DJ booth as well,
Right.
or working the music. So I
Hmm.
wasn't a great comedian early on, but I noticed that bit did well. So then I turned that bit into a video, and that's kind of when everything changed.
Oh,
Because that video did very well, and I've been doing other videos and they did not do well. So I knew that I should do another one, and then and see how that goes.
yeah. So in your content within this character, and I have to say that as an individual, I moved to the Midwest about 10 years or so ago, and I kind of discovered your videos maybe a few years ago, and I feel like as a person who's from West Virginia originally, it's a really great way to kind of like become Midwestern or to understand what the Midwestern culture is. So for me, you might think that a lot of the videos are just trying to be silly, but there's also like an interesting like culture reporting that is happening by way of these videos. Is that something that's kind of like a goal for you, or are you just trying to make people laugh?
You know, I, I think I may misunderstand that question. You're saying, let me just sort of repeat it back to you. Just so you said you kind of came here, and but you're seeing like part of what I'm doing kind of reflective of the culture or saying something about the culture.
Yeah, reflective of the culture. So like, to be honest, I didn't know that when I'm squeezing past somebody, I need to say "ope" here,
Yeah.
or I had no idea that the city in which I reside is actually just a couch, Davenport. So like for me, and also I'd never had a bush light until you and the You Betcha guy started coming into my feed. So I
Yeah.
feel like I'm becoming a Midwesterner through these characters. And so in a way, I guess I'm saying that there's an education that can come out of this content. And I'm curious if that's ever something you consider or think about, or are you just trying to make people laugh?
Yeah, I mean, that's funny you say that. I guess I hadn't always thought about it that way. Usually it's what I'm trying to do is take what exists, take where the culture is, and sort of reflect it in a exaggerated and comedic way, and sometimes not even that exaggerated,
Right.
but just to reflect, sort of be a reflection of what is, and embrace the funniness and the
Mhm.
quirkiness of it.
Right. So I've noticed that in your more recent content, there seems to be more partnerships with other content creators. What's that kind of process like? And did you know these guys before you started to make this stuff, or is it, you guys see each other out in the space and you're finding ways to work together that benefits both brands?
Yeah, I over the years as you do this, you kind of run into folks or people, tell you, excuse me, people say, "Oh, you should collaborate with this person or that person," and you watch their stuff, or maybe you're a fan of them just on your own, and then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of reach out, and it's fun. It's fun to do that, and also you can mix each other's audiences up, and kind of like, you know, um, you sort of introduce yourself to their audience, they introduce themselves to your audience, so it's definitely beneficial in that regard. But mostly you just look for people whose stuff you enjoy, and think you can make something funny with them.
Absolutely. And I guess it's nice to have somebody to spend some time in a Target parking lot with
Mm-hmm.
over the course of a day.
Yeah, it could be worse things to do with your day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's start to talk a little bit deeper about Charlie Berens, the character. And I would describe this character as a peak Wisconsinite, but I imagine that in your past you've not always been at that level. Are there like I don't know, public media figures or people from your past that you draw upon, maybe family members? I know that I went to school in Pittsburgh, and we have a comedian there who goes under Pittsburgh Dad. And for him, he's essentially just making videos of what his dad used to say to him and stuff like that. So, what's the like genesis in terms of like your past and how it relates to the character that you're out there doing?
Yeah, I think that hey, can you hear me? First of all, my phone's being a little goofy.
Yeah, totally. It sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, my main inspiration has always been my grandpa Bob. And he says a lot of the things I say quite seriously, and when he was alive, he just had all these great phrases, and just his mentality around a little irreverent, but a dry sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't take life too seriously unless we're talking about fish and perch. And, that's the guy that I kind of based everything off of. And then from there, I would add in flavors from like fishing show hosts and these
Mm-hmm.
guys I grew up watching on the telly,
Right.
and so it's kind of like, and then also just my own experience going up north as a kid. My dad's family from Fond du Lac, and
Mm-hmm.
mom's family from the suburbs of Milwaukee. So just kind of pulling things from different places, really.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start wrapping up today with I have a segment of a few Midwest theme either or scenarios, and you're of course welcome to answer them with a better or funnier third option. But this is again in the spirit of Inside the Actors Studio. I want to speak with Charlie the character now. um So here's our first hypothetical, either or. Lake Michigan or Lake Superior? Muted again.
Muted again. Gosh darn it, son of a gun. But I did hear your question, so I tell you this. Lake Michigan or Lake Superior? We're definitely going Lake Michigan. It's beautiful this time of year. Okay. Superior, I understand you named yourself Superior. That should be sufficient enough. Okay. But Lake Michigan is beautiful. Man walks right on Lake Michigan. Got the best gosh darn waves. Sheboygan competes with Malibu's waves. And then, of course, all the greatest beer starts with the greatest water. Milwaukee known for the best beer on planet Earth. Okay. And it gets that water right from the source, Lake Michigan. So there you got it.
Awesome. Lambeau or Camp Randall?
Yeah, Lambeau. Gotta go with Lambeau. I mean, I'm a bachelor true and true. And Camp Randall, fantastic place, but you cannot compete with Lambeau. No one can.
Busch or Miller?
Definitely Miller, like what I says about Milwaukee. Now I know you got a lot of you Busch boys and gals out there upset with me. Well, deal with it. Okay. Where was beer invented? Milwaukee. Okay. Don't Wikipedia that. It's not true, but just take it as truth.
Fleet Farm or Farm and Fleet?
You know, I'm a Fleet Farm guy, and everyone's entitled to their own situation there, and there's no judgment. But if you had to make me answer, I says Fleet Farm.
Fleet Farm or Menards?
Definitely Fleet Farm.
All right. Okay, let's talk brat prep. Are you a beer boil and grill? Straight beer boil? How's it best done?
Yeah, well, I tend to toss them on the grill first, okay, and then I make sure to not pop them sums of guns, and then I let them simmer in a beer hot tub, okay, which is sitting on the grill. So I'm not necessarily boiling them before. Look, this is a very hot political topic, and I don't know that I want to talk politics here. I don't want to upset anyone, but that's just how I do it. Now you do it, that's on you.
All right. And here's a really inside Madison question that I sourced from a friend who is a alumni. So I'm supposed to ask, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream at Memorial Union, and why is it orange custard chocolate chip?
Oh, wow. Hyper specific. That's really, now that is a fantastic flavor. It is. I'm not going to say nothing about it. I do kind of like a straight chocolate guy. I'm pretty boring like that. I'm pretty vanilla like that. But, you know, anything Babcock, that's fine.
Awesome. So, this interview is part of a new web show that WVIK is putting together about Quad Cities culture. And I understand that you've been to Iowa, but you've not necessarily been to the Quad Cities. So I want to give you a couple Quad City tips, if that's all right with you.
That would be wonderful. I'd love any Quad City tips you got.
Awesome. So are you staying in town after the show on Saturday night? Not to out you to anybody, but I'll give you some.
We are.
So the Quad Cities has an unbelievable amount of breweries. So
we're off to a good start.
We're off to an excellent start. So I imagine you're probably staying somewhere downtown. I suggest there is a bar right by the theater called Devon's Complaint Department. That to me is the type of place that Charlie Berens should hang. But aside from that, we have a kind of punk rock wrestling themed pizza joint called Low Pies Pizza, which is right down the road from you, which is fantastic. Are you a wrestling fan?
Punk rock and wrestling and pizza. I mean, that's some marketing ingenuity right there.
Right. Are you a wrestling fan by any means?
I got a Hulk Hogan wrestling buddy from when I was a kid. So
heck yeah. So
the Crusher is from Milwaukee. So there you got it.
Heck yeah. So WWE wrestling champion superstar Seth Rollins is from Davenport, Iowa. So that's the kind of wrestling connection. So let's think, what else is there? There's a brewery also a couple blocks away called Stomp Box Brewing. There's a venue/bar called the Raccoon Motel. That's super great. And there's also, if you're a distillery kind of guy, the Mississippi River Distilling Company just opened a new cocktail room in downtown Davenport. So we love our nightlife. We love our brews. And I hope you'll take a couple minutes to check out what we have to offer down in the Quad Cities.
Yeah, you bet your tush I will. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much.
Had me at breweries.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much for giving me a little time today, Charlie, and helping us kind of get things going over here at WVIK on Happy Hour.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Watch for deer.
Yeah, keep her moving.
All right, will do. Bye-bye now.
All right, bye. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Happy Hour. Happy Hour comes to you from WVIK Quad Cities NPR. This show is produced by Jaron Michelle and Mark Zyla. Help support the show by visiting our website, www.wvik.org, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and following us on social media at WVIKQC.